one small part of the surface of the Earth, Europe offers the most splendid variety of landscapes imaginable. Through the toil of the ages, Europe has sculpted an infinite variety of reliefs from the thousands of minerae that compose it. The climate dresses them in blankets of snow, verdure, or sparse, dry vegetation. The sun, in turn, transforms them with shadow and light. Water caresses them, instilling them with life.
The beauty of a landscape cannot be decreed. It cannot be analyzed in a rational manner. It is one's nature which prompts and awakens emotions. Each person perceives the view with his own sensitivity, his own culture, and the mood he is in.
To find beautiful landscapes, look for raw nature. Nature left to its own devices, working on a grand scale, using the talents of a monumental sculptor with an eye for detail.
On the western coast of Norway, the eroded flanks of a great Scandinavian plateau. They were carved 1 million years ago by glaciers, which dug out deep, narrow valleys. When the ice melted, the sea took its place and created striking and grandiose reliefs, the fjords. At the foot of the small town of Geiranger, the furthest extension of Strafjord offers one of the most magnificent landscapes to be seen in European nature. Geiranger, Ger meaning sinuous, Anger meaning fjord, thus doubly stating Geranger's ambition to be the fjord of fjords. Geranger Fjord, which winds inland along 15 kilometers, has impressive cliffs, which in some places reach over 1,000 meters. When water rushes down these steep walls, the scene is even more spectacular, and people come from all over the world to admire the cascades of the Seven Sisters or the Bridal Veil.
Water gushes from everywhere. It is infinitely pure.
Water and rock share space. The drab granite walls are brought to life, transformed by thundering waterfalls. Norway offers untouched scenery, whose beauty and character is unique in Europe.
Nowhere is the sky more luminous. Everything has remained intact, as at the beginning of time.
All along the winding roads that link the fjords, a sense of primitive purity arises from the multitude and variety of streams, the false impression that neither nothing nor anyone could ever defile it. Northeast of Bergen, the fjord capital, a little train which runs between Myrdal and Flam makes it possible for us to discover other landscapes. Away from the fjords, nature is less grandiose, but also less harsh and more cheerful. Under the spell of the Norwegian spring, one should remember and take into account the tyrannical nature of winter here. People here are familiar with nature. They love it, fear it, and therefore respect it. It is rare to find on this earth a populace that worships their country's landscapes as they do.
Man is present, But nothing is spoiled. He composes with nature, shares in the landscape. He has good taste. Red suits him.
Over 1,000 kilometers further north, Norway offers us some very different landscapes that are literally extraordinary.
It's almost like a dream. Mountains mirrored in tropical blue water.
This sandy beach is situated north of the polar circle. It is a beach in the Lofoten Islands, a huge archipelago which serves as a veritable rampart between the Norwegian coast and the sea. The unsurpassed magic of these landscapes, bathed by the summer sun, results from the astonishing juxtaposition of these jagged mountains and the ocean. Lofoten means the foot of the lynx, a surprising name for this mountainous barrier which literally pierces the ocean in such an unexpected place. The minerals which make up these mountains, granite and volcanic material, figure among the most ancient on Earth. Even before painters had discovered their sublime light, or travelers had sung their praises, the Lofotens were known for the exceptional abundance of fish in their waters. These sharp slopes possess the stark beauty of an alpine landscape invaded by the sea. The archipelago has been inhabited for over 2,000 years. On this island, man's history is indissociably linked with the history of fishing. In the year 1120, the king had fishing huts built here. They are called roerbors, and nowadays are rented out to tourists. The islands are protected from the usually harsh climates of these latitudes by the Gulf Stream. A lush carpet of vegetation has developed here, constantly enlivened by the winds. The Lofotens assuredly occupy a unique place among the mountains of Europe. This impressive and grandiose world of needles and fortresses, of campaniles and tables, of vertiginous walls, overhanging rocks and huge cliffs is unique on this planet. This mountain range, whose limestone composition leaves it particularly vulnerable to erosion, is extremely weathered. The Dolomites are on the southern face of the Alpine Arc, in the eastern Prealps.
The most phenomenal thing about these mountains is neither their shape nor their pale color. It's that they're set in the midst of soft, rolling curves of meadows.
The very special charm of the Dolomites lays in its unusual geological structure, as well as in its picturesque setting and peaceful surroundings. Its very name comes from the type of rock of which it is composed, dolomite, named in honor of the French geologist Déodat de Dolomieu, who identified it. The origin of these mountains goes back millions of years. They developed from ancient reefs formed by the limestone sediment of marine microorganisms in the clear and shallow waters of the primal Mediterranean. These reefs appear to have changed very little since they were submerged in the sea. They differ from the alpine relief in that they are not one long massive chain, but a series of isolated mountain groups, divided by wide, deep valleys and clearly marked passes. Cortina d'Ampezzo, a charming little town at the bottom of a cheerful valley. Not far from Cortina, the waters of Lake Misurina reflect the triple silhouette, which is the most dazzling manifestation of the Dolomite Mountains, the three peaks of Laveredo, famous the world over. Here, in the heart of the Carpathians, in Romania's Retezat Park, we discover the mountain's unadorned beauty. On this plain in Poland, the forest has been actively cleared, as in almost all of Europe. However, the parceling of the land and farming have endowed this domestic environment with new charm. Elsewhere, the scenic beauty scorns the mountainous reliefs. In the southeastern part of Finland, close to the Russian border, one marvels at the scenic beauty of the Samaya Lakes region. In the small town of Savonlinna, Olav's castle is completely surrounded by water, quite symbolic. This 15th century fortress is one of the most beautiful stone vestiges of the Scandinavian world. It's an exception. Here everything is built of wood. Wood is part of the landscape. Whether carved, cut, or standing, wood contributes largely to its charm.
In the country of 1,000 lakes, at the end of the day, the sky is adorned with white sheep, as if the evaporation from each lake gives birth to a cloud.
The immense stretch of the Samaya Lakes, covered with a multitude of islands and peninsulas, forms a universe apart, a labyrinth unique in the world. This lakeside system, which covers over 4,000 square kilometers, creates infinitely delicate scenery from the land and water.
One ceaselessly wanders along these lakes without ever really being able to imagine all their islands, when all one would have to do is rise up several meters.
Here in this flat country, a hill seems a mountain. Therefore, Colli Hill has become an obligatory climb for everyone. From its summit, we are immediately struck by the very essence of the Finnish landscape. Here, the Irish land is the complete opposite of the serenity of Finland. It is rugged, austere. In the 17th century, Cromwell, referring to this isle, said, "This is hell." It is true that this region has to adapt to harsh natural conditions, particularly along its coast, which is constantly and mercilessly beaten by the ocean.
The unchained sea and the cliffs, the bareness of the peatbogs, the wildness of the moors. The Green Isle is perfect food for melancholy.
Ireland's charm resides in the extraordinary palette of colors, both heavy and delicate, covering the mountains, which are quite imposing in spite of their low altitude. The lakes and lazy rivers, teeming with fish, radiate with shades of gold, ochre, pink, and mauve. This harmony of colors is constantly brought to life by the wind which blows from the east. Far to the west of Ireland, in Mayo County, lies Achill Island, the largest island along the Irish coast. Paul Henry, Alexander Williams, and Desmond Turner set up their easels on the edge of these crags, high on the cliffs, in order to capture in their paintings the naked truth of these landscapes. Heinrich Boll and Graham Greene also fell under the charm of this tiny bit of Irish soil, which at every bend of its reefs reveals superb sandy beaches. Of all the western part of Ireland, this region is the most famous for its scenery. In the Connemara, with but little to work with, nature created a masterpiece. The moors tremble in the wind. Animals scrounge for their measly pickings, all that this poor earth can yield. For heating, men have dug into the earth and extracted peat from the bogs. Rain is there for the asking, and yet the spell is cast. We are completely bewitched. These lakes, these peaks, the sea and the endless moors blend into the changing skies. One has a feeling of limitless space and the romantic temptation to abandon oneself to real, though harsh, nature. When one finally thinks one has pierced the reasons for liking Connemara's scenery, one is amazed to discover a charming bay, a tiny inlet, or a silvery light, and once again the spell is cast, though in a different way.
Everything changes with shadows, colors, and light. Each person chooses their own favorite time of day.
As in countries all over the world, sunrise and sunset are exceptional moments which bestow nature with unspoken beauty. Europe is filled with these vast stretches, these skies, these mountainous regions just waiting to be appreciated. Man has been quick to settle in those places graced by exceptional climates. Only rarely has he been capable of respecting their landscapes. Taormina is a resort known the world over for its unspoiled harmony. The little town is situated at the foot of Mount Etna in southeastern Sicily. A bit arbitrarily, perhaps, the Holy of Holies along this enchanting coast is situated here. A bit of land, several dozen square meters, which has been given a magical name, Isola Bella. Isola Bella is the smallest of the largest of the Mediterranean islands, Sicily, whose scenic beauty is closely tied to the presence of man, in the past as well as today. The few bits of land which emerge from the sea here and there have magical shores and magical names. The Aeolian Isles, so rich in mythological meaning that the landscape is transfigured, illuminated by the gods and magnified by the poet.
Of blue sea, some rocks scattered here and there in the Mediterranean. One can be assured of the effect.
All of southern Europe revolves around this enchanted sea, with its luminous waters bathing the jagged, sun-drenched coastline. The entire Mediterranean coast, stretching over thousands of kilometers, is a single, uninterrupted, superb landscape. Here and there one discovers a masterpiece created by the whims of geology. Bay of Naples to the Cyclades, from Ischia to the Balearic Islands, the Mediterranean plays infinite variations. It is the white or red earth plunging into waters which waver between emerald and azure. The Balearic Archipelago, the most frequented in the Mediterranean, is thought to be spoiled by tourism, but nature still remains, hidden in many places, intact and superb. To the east of the Mediterranean, in the Aegean Sea, nature has been harsher with the Cyclades archipelago. In spite of the sea and the sun, this dry land is austere, almost harsh. But man, through his beliefs and his way of building, has enlivened the coast with white buildings which add their own special charm. Going through Europe from one extremity to another along the same latitude, we reach the southern coast of Portugal. A bit inland, in spite of the sweltering sun, nature plays with shadow and light.
It isn't just a matter of shape, light, and color. There's also life, sounds, and scents.
The simple things in life, the faces, are also part of the scenery here. Several kilometers away stretches one of the most spectacular shores in the world. The Algarve coast is situated on the edge of Western Europe. Here, the Atlantic has Mediterranean colors. the ocean eats away at the limestone rock, creating extraordinary formations. The cavities of this rock were once filled with sand and silt. Little by little, the ocean washes them away, resulting in this amazing relief, a multitude of towers, needles, grottos, and arches, making this setting unique. At sunset, the warm colors of the Algarve are intensified. But there is a place in Europe where even in the harshest light, nature reveals its extreme colors. Iceland. A world apart, a volcanic land.
Of course it's chaos, but the Earth is very good at that sort of thing.
No other place in Europe can offer such visual impact at any hour of the day.
The shock comes from the violence of the colors.
Behind the black brilliance of obsidian and a field of slag, the manifestation of subterranean forces awakens these magnificent, heart-rending landscapes. In the midst of the hot springs of Krysuvik, geysers and potholes invite initiatic discovery.
This is how one imagines the origins of the world.
A mineral landscape, the total absence of trees, a feeling of suffocation. These dark brown rocky stretches, cleft and cracked, leave one with the impression of traveling back through geological time. At every moment, Iceland is ready to surprise us. It is constantly summoning us to a journey into beauty and excess. These disorienting horizons are only a 3-hour flight away from the rest of Europe. The presence of nature is still so strong and wild that it would seem that nothing would ever threaten these landscapes.
Iceland conveys an exceptional primeval purity in the simple forms of this mountain group. Between the Helka volcano and the Elja volcano, Landmannalaugar, the country where men bathe naked, leaves the rhyolite slopes exposed to the changing effects of the snow and the ever-shifting sky.
Awakened by the contemplation of these landscapes in the farthest corner of Europe can only encourage us to make sure that neither here nor elsewhere does man upset the delicate balance that the logic of nature has so exquisitely arranged.